Hello, GovCon winners. We are in for a special treat today. We have an amazing guest. This is one you definitely want to stay until the end for. We have Miss Shirley Collier, who is here with Scale to Market. And what's awesome about what she's going to talk about are many of my favorite things: profitability, profitability, profitability in the federal government space. And I'm going to hand things over here to her in 1 second. But before I do, please be ready to take notes and to act on what she is to share, because she really knows. And not only does she know, but she has all of the receipts and evidence to back up what she's going to share. And you're going to love it. So welcome so much, Shirley. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Kizzy.
Oh, it's such a pleasure and honor. I would love to know, what are the keys to growth in the federal space for small businesses?
Well, the keys really are to be innovative because you're not Booz Allen, you're not Northrop Grumman, so you have to distinguish yourselves. And the federal agencies are looking for innovation, but you also have to be very disciplined in your approach to the federal marketplace and also very customer focused. And a lot of people don't understand what I mean when I say customer focused. As you listen very carefully to your clients and learn, your products and services will morph, your approach will change over time, your organizational structure will change. Small government contractors go through very defined phases of growth.
Oh, I love that, because I know personally we started out in diversity. Now we're big into staffing. I have colleagues who started in training, then they end up pivoting into record management and digitalization of documents. I didn't even know that was a thing that the government purchased. So there's these evolutions that happen. And what do companies in the startup phase need to concentrate on, especially if it's just them?
Well, when you're in the startup phase, you don't know what you don't know. So that's what's most important. If you, and in fact, I tell my clients, the second hardest thing that you'll ever do is to start and grow a small business.
Mm.
But the number one hardest thing that you'll ever do is to start and grow a small business in the federal sector. So the most important thing to do when you're in the startup phase is to understand how the federal government procures. And as boring as it may sound, you really need to understand the FAR. And there are some free services, the PTACs, the SBDCs. There are a lot of people that are very willing to help you understand how the federal government procures, because it's highly regulated. So you want to understand the rules and regulations so you don't violate them. In this phase, what you also want to do is to develop relationships. Sometimes small businesses get their start because maybe they worked for a government contractor, a larger government contractor, and they already had been doing some business as an employee for a federal agency. You definitely want to, when you're in that environment, let's say you're working for a larger company, you want to develop as many relationships as you possibly can with contractors, with your competitors, with the program managers, your peers, small business office, because those relationships need to be leveraged when you first get started.
That is definitely key. Definitely key to leverage those different relationships.
The other thing that I thought about in the startup phase is you want to build all of the building blocks upon which your company will grow. So if you qualify for a socioeconomic certification, you definitely want to do that.
Okay.
You want to have a good cost accounting system. That doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. QuickBooks has good job costing for when you first get started. You want to understand how to recruit, because sometimes your initial contracts are butts and seats. And that's okay, but that's how you get your foot in the door at an agency. So understanding how to recruit is a key skill when you're in the startup phase.
And for those of you who may be watching and unfamiliar with a term, could you just elaborate on butts and seats for some of the viewers?
Yeah, so it's basically a staffing requirement. So a federal agency needs a particular person to perform a particular job. Posting that job as a federal job and hiring and so forth is extraordinarily complex and time consuming. So many federal agencies will just contract out that position. But a butts and seats contract means that that individual gets their direction from someone in the government. Although they're employed through your company, the work that they do and the oversight that they receive is really coming from the federal agency.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It's one of my favorite areas is staffing and things of that nature. But I know that some just aren't as familiar with the different terms, and I really, really appreciate that.
And that evolves. I've heard companies say, oh, you definitely don't want to do butts and seats. You don't want to do staffing. You want to have a value proposition. You want to be a solution provider. But all federal agencies, even the large guys, even Booz Allen does some staffing. If you're smart about it, and go back to what I said a few minutes ago about listening and learning from your clients and, raising your head and kind of looking around, you will see opportunities to provide more value and to be a solution provider. So I've seen a lot of smart, small government contractors start out with providing staffing and then they morph into a solution provider.
Yeah, definitely. And one of my companies, we have a relationship with IBM, and they have a staffing opportunity that's internal to them, and they use small businesses to fulfill those openings. And the one thing that I'll never forget from one of the calls with them about it, they said, "This is our moneymaker." And many overlook that, or they don't know because it's not, as attractive to talk about. We do staffing, as opposed to weapons or planes or computers, or AI. That's all.
Right.
Woo, staffing's like, ooh, staffing, But in reality, to your point, pretty much a lot of companies are involved in that space, and it's great. It's a great little area.
It is because the government really consists of people and technology. That's like 99% of the government. And there's a huge demand for skilled people. And anyone who has recruiting capabilities and can supply those people in a timely manner at a reasonable rate can build a very nice, profitable business.
Yeah, they definitely can. And there's so many niches out there. If they wanted to focus in on one, they can, or if on all of them, they can do that too, which
Yep.
is awesome. And kind of speaking about growth, what about companies in the growth phase, say from 5 million to 25 million? This is a nice sweet spot.
It is, and this is really my favorite. This is when I like to find companies because the founder has grown the business as far as he or she can. And now it's time to pivot. You pivot your strategy, your staff, your focus, your market focus, the products and services that you provide, your proprietary methods and approaches all pivot during this stage, and your organizational structure pivots during this stage. Many times, the outsourced services that you took advantage of when you were smaller, it's time to bring those in house. Accounting, recruiting, HR, business development. This is also the time when founders will begin developing an executive team and delegating authority. And that is so hard. It's hard for any entrepreneur, but it's especially hard when you're in a very complex regulated environment like the federal government. But
Yeah.
it's absolutely crucial if that small business wants to grow and graduate from the small business set aside program, participate, compete in the full and open market, create market value, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they one day want to cash out. It's one of the reasons why they're putting in 60-hour work weeks. If you want to get to that stage where someone else sees value in your company, it's a very important time in the growth of the company to begin making those changes so that that can happen in the future. It might be 5 years out, might be 10 years out, but now is the time when you're in that 5 to 25 million is to begin making all of these changes. This is also the time, Kizzy, when I find that companies begin to inflict more discipline on their business development practices.
Yes.
Because many times it was the founder that had the relationships and leveraged those relationships to get a contract or two. But now he or she is busy running the business and all these other things going on. And they maybe took a very organic approach to business development up to this phase, kind of shoot from the hip, whatever they're hearing about, going out and looking at RFPs and RFIs and talking to friends and family and those sorts of things. Now it's time to be much more disciplined in identifying, qualifying, and pursuing opportunities.
That one has really struck a chord because it's definitely over 5 million, but even under 5 million, because it's, to your point, it's kind of like, hey, it's like throw in darts at things and, oh yeah, I hit something. And so that discipline, that's definitely needed. And it's great because it's something, one of many things that you help business owners with, which is needed, because while there's a ton of free resources, and as much as I love free, often with the free resources, they've never grown a business. Right. Or maybe they have, but it wasn't a government contracting business. And intent is beautiful. And a lot of people who work for organizations that offer free help, they have a loving heart, a heart of a teacher, but they may not have that expertise to take you to that next level. So that's why you are so needed and come in to this space, and I'm just so excited about it. I'm also curious, can you give us an example of a business that you have helped grow? Because we definitely need more and more examples of those.
Yes. One example is a client of mine that was a $5 million 8A firm. They described themselves as an IT services company. They were doing a little bit of everything. So some network administration, some application development, some web design, help desk. And their goal was to grow, to double in size in 3 years. They wanted to go from 5 million to 10 million in 3 years. So as I came in and started digging through their contracts and their core competencies and what really made them different and better than the competition, they mentioned that, oh, yes, well, a couple of years ago, we hired some data scientists and we've been working on this project using artificial intelligence to detect fraud. I said, oh, okay. And have you been successful? Outrageously successful. In fact, they had just won the recompete for that project. They knew that they wanted to do more of that, but they wanted to hang on to everything else that they were doing. What I suggested is, let's see if there is enough market demand for artificial intelligence and fraud detection for you to put all of your resources into that area. Will help you grow. The margins are greater, but let's make sure that there is in fact enough demand. And as you can imagine, of course, this was about 4 years ago, there is a lot of demand for artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we put together a growth plan, 2-year growth plan, very specific agencies, opportunities, contract vehicles, teaming partners that they need to pursue in order to build their business in the artificial intelligence fraud detection area specifically. So 18 months later, the president of the company called me and he said, Shirley, I just wanted to let you know that we are not on track to meet our $10 million goal. And I went, oh. And he said, we're going to hit 20 million by the end of this year.
Oh my gosh. That is fantastic.
I know, I was so proud of them. He gave me a lot of credit. The president gave me a lot of credit, which is very generous of him. But I know how much hard work went into those 18 months to increase their contract wins from 5 million to 20 million a year. So kudos to them.
Yes, that is significant. That is significant. And that's so fast.
Yes, yes. But they were smart people. They were very data driven and very focused in their. It took a lot of guts, as you can imagine, to let some of these contracts, existing contracts that they had, to expire. They didn't recompete for some of the network administration and help desk contracts that they had. They put all their energy into artificial intelligence, and it was the right bet.
Wow, that's great. I mean, they really stepped out there and it paid off.
It did.
Wow. Wow, this is just mind-blowing. And I hope again everyone is taking note of this, that it's definitely beyond possible. It's just having that right coach to help get you there, which is key.
Yes.
Super key.
Yes.
You know, all the different stages of being an entrepreneur and business growth, what have you found is the most difficult?
Whatever stage you're in is the most difficult, because it's your reality. You think, oh, the startup, this is the most difficult. And then when you're in the growth phase, you're changing so many things and there's so much uncertainty. And even, beyond, when you graduate from the small business set aside program, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do because I'm competing in the full and open market and I'm competing against, all the big guys. What I try to do in every phase of growth is to help the founders, the CEO, the president, the senior executives understand that what they're going through is normal and it's expected, and that there are multiple paths to success. There are industry best practices, there are things that we can learn from others, but that with a little bit of thinking, very purposeful thinking. In fact, you probably have heard the adage, our thoughts lead to words, words lead to actions, actions become habits, and our habits are our lives. We start with your thinking, and then how do you articulate your thinking? How do you integrate that into behaviors, into actions in your company? And then you want your company to have and practice good habits. And those habits are different at different stages of growth, but that is our objective, is knowing that you, as the founder and CEO, you're not alone in your journey. There are others that are going through the same thing currently and have gone through the same thing, and let's leverage that whole body of knowledge.
That is good. I love that. Leveraging the whole body. Got to be able to do that.
Yes.
And Shirley, you've given and talked a lot about different strategies, strategy development for small business contractors. Could you kind of elaborate, what are these different like amazing elements? You can describe them, point them out of a good strategy. What makes a good strategy?
A lot of small businesses don't understand strategy, or they think it's only something that big companies do, but
Mm.
it's so critical really at every stage of growth. In its simplest form, strategy is about where to play, meaning which agencies, contract vehicles, opportunities, and how to win. What is your market positioning? Prime or sub? What expertise? Which products and services should you provide? What are your differentiators? What do you do better than the competition? So, where to play and how to win. So, I kind of frame these discussions in those two big categories. And strategy is not something you do once. It's something you do continuously, and it evolves over time. It evolves as the marketplace changes. I mean, federal agencies have different requirements, they have different budgets. There's stuff coming out from Congress that changes the focus on these agencies. Your competition is going to change. There are new competitors entering the market all the time. There's a lot of consolidation taking place. So, really understanding the competitive landscape helps you determine how you're going to play and how you're going to win. And your own competitive advantage changes as you grow. Your knowledge, your experience, your skills, your methods that you use in your business, your technologies, and as you streamline your operations, your cost structure changes and you can become more competitive in that way. So it's very critical that you look at all of these categories of strategies on an ongoing basis.
That is good. Like the ongoing basis. It's not like a did it January 1st and I'll look again January 1st of the following year. It's ongoing.
And the most successful companies integrate strategic thinking into the minds of everybody in the company. It becomes a part of your culture. So everybody, if you have people who are doing application development or network services for an agency, you instill in them that we want to do what's best for our client. So be asking them, how can we do this better? Be observant. Look at what their issues are, their problems are, and bring that back to the office, because where there is chaos and uncertainty, there's opportunity. So having everybody in the company think about, how can we do this better? How can we serve this agency better? What's going on at this agency? What can we do to help them achieve mission? Bringing all that back to the office for good strategic conversation is what leads to success.
It definitely does lead to success. And I love that you touch on all these areas because it is so needed, but never discussed enough. There's all this discussion, how to win a contract or target 3 agencies, but all of those other ingredients, it's like knowing to bake a cake, you need flour and chocolate. Like that's not going to give you a cake.
Right.
So
yes, and I use that analogy a lot. In fact, Kizzy, I think that a lot of women use that. You're cooking and you may have the ingredients, but what is your recipe?
Right. And then she has the secret ingredients because they may give you the recipe, but then they withhold those 2 things.
Yes, and technique. You make sure that you put this ingredient in first and then bring it to a boil, and then you add this, but just a pinch, and then taste it, and all of that goes into strategy.
Sure does. It sure does. And kind of on the flip end of all of that are the mistakes. What is like the biggest mistake that you have found that small businesses make in this federal space?
Proposing themselves to death.
Ooh.
I've heard the term, the little saying, well, if you're not proposing, you're not winning. Well, I hate that because you can spend so much money in proposal development in the federal sector, as you know, Kizzy, it's extraordinarily expensive. So that's the biggest mistake that I see small businesses make, is that they are responding to RFPs. They'll see an RFP hits the street. Oh my gosh, we can do this. This is perfect. This is exactly what we do. And they really have no idea how much their competition has been shaping that opportunity over the last 6 months or year, 18 months, and that they really have no chance. Even if they could do the work, they're not going to be selected by this agency because agencies do not do business with people they don't know. It's too risky.
Yes, it is way too risky. And I love that because I talk a lot about different levels of risk when it comes to opportunities. And it's no different than us. We're not just going to hire someone who says, I can paint to paint a bedroom for us. We're just not going to do that. We don't want to take that risk. So why would the federal government do that with taxpayer dollars? They're not going to do that either.
Yep. And you have to sell, as a small business, you have to sell yourself, your capabilities, your ideas to decision makers in the federal sector. You have to get in front of the right people and convince them that you are competent, reliable, innovative. You understand how the federal government procures, you understand how to manage contracts, manage projects, that you're going to be reliable, you're going to deliver. And it's not just expressing all of that in a proposal. So shaping, a lot of people have heard that terminology, shaping upcoming opportunities can be done in the federal sector ethically and legally.
Yes, they definitely can. I know I've been part of that. And if I'm able to do that, then everyone watching this, you can definitely do that. You definitely can. Shirley, what other advice do you have for our amazing audience, amazing GovCon winners out there?
I would say use data to inform your decisions. There's a lot of public data. That's one of the good things about doing business in the federal sector is that any procurement over $3,500, there has to be a market research phase, and the contract that is awarded has to be made public. So there's a lot of free information out there through FPDS that you can use to determine buying strategies, requirements of federal agencies, existing contracts that might be coming up for recompete, contracts that are in the market research phase. So you definitely want to inform yourself with data, public data, but you also want to leverage human intelligence. I don't mean listening to gossip about about what's going on in agencies. There's a lot of that going on out there about which contractors are in favor and which ones are not. But the human intelligence that I encourage my clients to gather is talking to their clients. And I've talked about this a little bit earlier in our conversation, is listen very carefully and very thoroughly of what your clients are saying, what works, what is not working, what do they wish it could be done differently and better in the future. And this is really tricky because you can't just go to your client, your federal client, and say, what do you want done differently? Because they're like, that's too open-ended. But if you're very entrenched in an agency, you're doing business in an agency, you have a competitive advantage because you have access. And if you look around and talk empathically, so showing empathy for your clients. And I talk to my clients a lot about what we mean by empathy. And I'm not just talking about the touchy-feely empathy. I'm talking about making eye contact, asking open-ended questions, asking the second question, the third question, showing genuine interest in what they have going on, and empathy towards, their budget and the fact that they would love to be promoted, but if this project doesn't go well, it could impact my career. That they're humans. They're just humans. If you have meaningful discussions with your clients and show genuine interest in helping them, being very altruistic, helping them solve their problems and achieve success, you become a trusted advisor. And that is the most powerful, fulfilling, and profitable position you can be in.
Yes, I love that. I cannot echo that enough. That is so true. I watched it in my very early days. I've been part of that, and that is the sweet spot where you want to be. Shirley, as we kind of close here, how can people contact you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
The best way is to email me, scollier@scale2market.com. That's scale with the number 2 in the middle, market.com. Or you can go to our website, which is also scale2market.com.
Yes. And I believe you also have a podcast.
Yes. Growth Masters Federal, which can be found wherever you get your pods.
Yes. So definitely listen, watch, contact her. But what's key in this space is multiple mentors. It's not one mentor, just like it's not one agency. It's multiple. So I cannot thank you enough for being here. I love this. It's so informative. And I know my amazing GovCon winners loved it too. And please contact her. Please comment below, hit the notification button, subscribe, share, like. And as always, all my amazing GovCon winners, don't forget, everything is possible.